Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bad and the Worst, a podcast where we watch movie trilogies and decide which movie is actually less attractive with freshly dyed hair. I'm your host, Griner, and joining me today...
I'm Jason Bourne. You guys need to get some rest, fellas. You look tired.
I'm Luke Morgan. Jesus Christ. That's Jason Bourne.
We're doing the Jason Bourne trilogy, if it wasn't totally obvious from those quotes. Boys, do you guys have deep connections to these movies? Are you big Matt Damon fans? Luke? Matt Damon.
I feel like, Matt Damon is Jason Bourne to me. Like, that's how I always associated.
Wait, is there anybody that believes otherwise? Like, is there a Jeremy Renner crowd out there that's like, he's my Jason Bourne?
There's dozens of them.
No. I mean, as in, when I look at Matt Damon, for the longest time, I just thought Jason Bourne. Like, you know, Matt Damon was Jason Bourne more than Jason Bourne is Matt Damon.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, I didn't know him from too many other things. Like, I feel like I was probably introduced to him through the Bourne trilogy. I watched it a lot when I was younger. I remember watching Bourne Ultimatum when it first came out at the cinema after watching the first two on DVD over and over and over again. And then just, abusing the hell out of Ultimatum. I watched it so much to the point that I got burned out on the trilogy and didn't watch it again for 12 years because I was just like, I don't want to watch them films again. But I always really enjoyed them. I always looked at them as like, you know, they changed a lot in cinema and how people did action movies and stuff like that. It was fun to go back and realize, there was a reason I liked these in the first place. Like they're good films.
Conan, you big Bourne identifier? I think that's what they call themselves.
I identify as Bourne.
There's a group of people who feel that strongly. I don't know. I've never been that strong. I don't know. The whole Robert Ludlum Bourne thing, they feel like kind of dad fiction. So I think they've been sort of relevant, but background relevant, as in those books have had a big weight along with, like John Grisham and all those sort of old spy books the dads read and that you'll see on bookshelves and are always kind of pretty ubiquitous there. And then these movies were sort of became the gold standard of action. So I don't know if I knew anybody, myself included, who was like ultra passionate about it. There's no one who's like, man, Bourne Supremacy is like my film. That's me. And I don't remember ever having any discussions or conversations through being like, let's dissect these movies, because to me they've always been like, the gold standard of action, because they sort of redefine what action movies become. And the Bourne movies are in every single DVD collection in the world. You go to any house on any shelf, there will be at least Ultimatum, probably all three though. Because they just kind of like, everyone saw these, everyone liked them. And me too. Like, I remember, the weird thing is, even now, I'm like, they're all pretty good movies, but I struggle to remember things about them. And I struggle to be like, I don't really have a clear picture of what happens in them. It's like, I remember bits and pieces, and I remember enjoying them, but there's no sense of like, I sort of have a visual narrative sense or anything. So
each film doesn't have a clear identity.
No, they're not. They don't have the strongest identity. You're right. Yeah.
Which is quite poetic, yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I agree with what you say about like dad fiction. Like, these movies kind of got lumped into the same category for me as James Bond movies, and I know we've talked about this before. Like, they just didn't. They never sort of super clicked with me. I was never super excited to see them. I was never like lining up day one to see them in the cinema. I didn't own these on DVD. I was talking to a guy the other night, and he was asking me how the podcast was going. I'm like, we're just about to do the Bourne trilogy. And he's like, oh man, that's got to be like one of my top 5 favorite trilogies of all time, like favorite movie series of all time. I'm like, really? You're that guy? like I don't know. Just for me, they barely even register. But I was pleasantly surprised watching them this time. Like, I actually had a pretty good time. I really enjoyed myself.
And that's what I mean. They have such a weird thing where they're all really good. And watching them, I'm like, especially the first one, I was struck by how good the first one is. And then even if there were moments in the third, I'm like, wow, this is the kind of action stuff that we should be talking about and being like, how about that amazing scene from Ultimatum? But they just, for some reason, they kind of fall into the background. And I don't know if that's because of the curse of shaky cam that these movies are kind of inseparable from. Or if it's just the ubiquity with which Matt Damon has become Jason Bourne and kind of become a bit of a joke. Like, the whole world knows who Matt Damon is because of this. That's kind of the whole that was a big part of the whole Team America joke. Like Matt Damon was just
Yeah.
because he became. Everyone knew he became this. It's kind of a joke. Some people don't like him, even though I think he's really good. Like these movies, yeah, I would struggle to wonder if anybody hasn't seen these movies. And I don't know if that's colored my interpretation. But like, my gold standard is my wife. If she's seen a movie, I'm like, everyone's seen this movie. And we're watching Identity. She's like, oh, this scene happens now. I'm like, how do you remember this? She's like, because I've seen this movie. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. That's the thing. I feel like there's certain things that as soon as I saw something, I was like, okay, yeah, that's right. That's how this scene ends, or that's what happens to this person. Like as soon as he went into that house in the second one, I was like, oh, that's right. He puts a thing in the toaster. And I was like, to cause an explosion. I was like,
I remember
know
that too. For some
That's
reason,
the
that's burned into my
random thing.
brain.
The second movie, I'm like, the toaster. He puts a piece of paper in the toaster. That's what I remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if I enjoyed it more this time after so many years is because now I am a dad, and maybe now just the like dad spy stuff is way more in my jam. But yeah,
Not the
it's.
Empire. Just this.
I mean, that's just since birth, But yeah, I enjoyed them again, and like I don't know why I'd always been hesitant. My wife had been telling me for the last couple of years since we started this podcast, oh, why don't you do the Bourne trilogy? And I've just always been like, like I don't want to go back and watch them again, like not for a while. But yeah, sitting down, I got hooked on them again. I was like, oh cool, like I can't wait to watch the next one again. So yeah.
Yep.
All right, you ready for some stats?
Stats.
Bourne Identity, released in 2002, had a budget of $60 million, made $214 million. Bourne Supremacy, released 2 years later, 2004, $75 million budget, made $290 million at the box office. And Bourne Ultimatum, released 2007, budget of $110 million, made $444 million. The critical response is 68, 73, and 85, respectively.
85 is high.
It is, and one of the rare trilogies there where it gets it has a better critical reception the longer it goes on. Well, actually, we won't count the 2 movies that we aren't covering tonight, I guess. But as a trilogy, like it's very rare for the third movie to be the best.
It is, and these feel like a piece. Like these are 3 of a piece. The other 2, well, one is literally a spin-off, and Jason Bourne is a very clear sort of add-on.
Yep.
Sort of cash grab feels really different. So we can ignore that.
But big money makers, like it's very unsurprising that they tried to continue this series. Like Bourne Ultimatum, like $110 million budget, made $444 million. Like it's pretty big bucks.
Yeah, and I can only imagine like the home set DVD sales would have been massive for this. Like that was the era of just everyone buying DVDs for whatever reason, and so.
You're right. Yeah, there's definitely there's those movies that everybody owned, and this was definitely one of them. And I mean, that's got to contribute somewhat to the success of these movies for sure.
Easily.
It's kind of crazy to think like 2007, like that's right before the start of the MCU, and it's just like all of this was self-contained, all in a couple of years before the MCU took off, and then obviously the next time they come back to this is trying to bring Jeremy Renner in. And from Avengers fame and try and capitalize on that. And I don't know if that did very well at the box office, but yeah, it's interesting that it was able to just come out and then stop where it did for a long time. I appreciate it. It definitely feels like a complete package as the trilogy.
It is kind of weird, to think like because these I don't know anything about the books. From what I've gathered, it's really just these movies take the name and the character, and that's about it. They don't follow any stories. But it does feel like the kind of thing you just sort of it could become a James Bond where every few years you have a Bourne movie and it's like yes and no, partially you could, partially you couldn't because this whole quest is about identity, but you can always find a new situation to go, they're after Jason Bourne again, he's got to get out of this. But I guess it was the era they weren't as sort of militant about exploiting franchises where they did the trilogy and like that's it. They sort of seem to be happy to be done with it. And I don't know how much of that is because of Matt Damon. I think he wanted to get out of it. Around this time is when he turned down Avatar because he didn't want to get tied up to a thing, and he could have made literally like billions of dollars or something.
Yeah.
So I think he was pretty keen to leave, and so that probably affected it. But it does kind of surprise me they didn't just really try to keep this going in some way.
Did anyone play the Bourne Conspiracy, the video game, when that tried to capitalize on this? Just me.
When I was looking at Metacritic, it kept coming up, but
Didn't even know
Wasn't
that
bad.
existed.
Wasn't bad.
I mean, that was the era of like shameless cash grab movie tie-in games.
Yeah.
Was
It wasn't Matt Damon.
Was it a first-person shooter or a third-person shooter?
Third person.
Yeah, right.
But not Matt Damon. It was just based off the book, but based off the movies. So
Yeah, okay.
All right, let's get into it. A man is picked up by a fishing boat, bullet riddled, and suffering from amnesia before racing to elude assassins and attempting to regain his memory. It's a compelling start to a movie. Like I don't know. I enjoy, like, there's very little English in the opening of this movie. Like, and they don't even subtitle most of it. Like, it just feels very, very mysterious.
Yeah. Mm.
He pulls out this little red laser out of his hip. How cool is that?
There's a bank thing on it. Like, what the?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are many movies other than this one where I would watch and rewatching it and everything, and I know this story, where I will deal with amnesia. I don't like amnesia in stories.
Really? What's up?
I don't know. I feel like there's a season of Vikings, where he like loses his memory or he's a bit like dazed and confused, and it's just like I don't enjoy it. I don't like knowing more than what the character does, especially if it's a character that loses. This is where it's it's introducing this character, and I feel like that's all right because it's like, okay, I don't know anything about this person. That's good. I don't like it when somebody loses it halfway through a story, I guess, more so. I find it like a trope that annoys me. If a character gets amnesia or something like that, or in video games or in movies where I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy them episodes where it's like, okay, we got to work our way back up to where we were up to, sort of thing. So, and I feel like it was a trope for a while. I can't even think of any examples, but I just remember there's a few there. But I like it here. I like it because it is full of mystery at the start, and it's like I don't know what the hell's going on, who this person is, or
Yeah, that's the big difference, right? Yeah, I agree. It's pretty lazy when it's just I got a head injury, and it's like now the whole season is them not knowing. Like that's just such a common thing with rom-coms and stuff. Like
James Franco in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, good example. And so it's like you're right. The audience is like, we know what this is, and so you're supposed to be invested, but you're not. Because like it feels pretty contrived, but it works really well when it is like when we're as amnesic as him. Where we come in like, we have no idea, so we're right. Like it's a good way of developing empathy when you don't know anymore as well. And to your point, like this opening is really like it's pretty ballsy for a movie to not hold your hands at all, to just throw you in and be like, I'm not even quite sure what's happening. Like I say, so these guys are all smoking and playing cards. Are they going to kill him? Are they going to help him? Are they looking for him? We're not really sure. And it's just like you're on the journey with him. There's no they don't talk about themselves like, oh, it looks like he's been shot and this must have happened. I wonder if this is to do with that political assassination. There's nothing like that. It's just like we're finding out every step of the way. And that's that's this whole movie. It's just kind of like trying to figure out what's going on. And you're just with this guy who you're really invested with because you're like, yeah, I don't know. I want to know. I want to know with him. That must suck having no memory and of being shot.
Yeah.
And it's a really good drive to the story that I think like that makes this one stand out to the other two. Having that sort of the question there of like, who am I? And there's the line that sort of became sort of meme where he's like, I don't know who I am. So yeah, is there any greater question to ask for humankind to ask? I don't think so.
I ask it all the time. I ask it all the time.
I wake up in the ocean, bullet holes. I'm like, not again. Who am I now?
I'm not going to lie. I remember watching Bourne Ultimatum and thinking that was going to happen at the end. Being like, oh my God, he just got shot and fell into the water. Is he going to wake up and be like, I don't know who I am in the fourth one? I was like, please don't. I don't want to start this right again. But yeah.
Grant, what do you think?
I agree with you guys about amnesia. Like, I do think it can be pretty lazy. It's often used as like a way to reset relationships, I guess, in movies, particularly TV shows use that a lot. But yeah, no, I agree. It's a great mystery here. I enjoy following him along with it. Even like where it feels like he's kind of discovering his powers in some ways. Like he's in the bank and he's like casing the joint and he's like figuring out where all the exits are and where the cameras are and what the guards are doing, and he's paying attention to Murray, paying attention to her as well. Like it's fascinating to see. You're kind of learning how his mind works as he goes, and it's yeah, it's a good conceit for a movie.
Yeah, there's the two great scenes. There's one where he's asleep in the park and the cops arrest him. And he just kind of like, it's pretty weirdly edited, but he just like knocks them both out. And you're like, he's like, you can see it's like in Spider-Man 1 where Tobey Maguire's like, whoa, what could I do? Yeah, he's like, I didn't know I could do that. And then there's the conversation with Marie where he's like, I can tell you that, what is it? It's like the guy at the counter weighs 220 pounds and can handle himself. I can tell you the best place is blah, blah, blah. He's like, how do I know this? Like, it's really fun to watch because you know you're in sort of safe hands. And so you're just watching what's going on. And you're like, it's both a compelling question, but also like a really exciting ride. It's like in Taken, you just know Liam Neeson's going to beat everybody up. And you're like, this is fun. And so the same with this, like, you just know this guy's going to be okay. But there's such a great drive to it all, yeah.
I feel like this was a big inspiration for Taken, obviously.
I think so.
The Bourne Trilogy.
Like,
it didn't end as well.
I've never seen a Taken movie.
Oh boy, you wait until we do the Taken.
I'm sure it's coming at some point.
All right, well, speaking of that, because Taken undergoes the problem with shaky cam. So shaky cam, yeah, like I mentioned, it's the kind of the legacy of these movies. But the first one doesn't have it.
I was going to say, it's not really shaky cam in this first movie. Like, it's a little shaky, but it's probably shaky as any other movie at the time.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely the second or the third one where you really feel it.
Yeah, so I mean, it's obviously, like, it's worth noting, this is Doug Liman, right? So very, very colourful director, has had a very weird career, has quite a bit of sort of mystique around him, probably most well known for Edge of Tomorrow now. But yeah, he starts this off, and then Paul, real banger, like, very talented guy, but then Paul Greengrass takes over, and like, I think what we identify as Bourne movies is purely Paul Greengrass's DNA. And yeah, he goes on to basically remake these for the next 10 years with like Green Zone and Jason Bourne again. Yeah, it's I don't know, in my mind they're all the same, but like I was just struck how different this movie feels. Like, this is kind of a very unactiony action movie. There's very few action set pieces. The ones that do are pretty, like, the big one's the car chase, and it's very sort of clear, and there's no shaky cam in there. And the rest of it's kind of like a romance sort of story. It's weird. I don't know. I was surprised that an action movie can have so little action but still be so effective. Like, it's more of a spy movie, and I guess there is a difference there.
Espionage.
Yeah, like between spy thriller and action. I
I agree. Like, this movie always felt kind of, I don't know, almost like it had like foreign movie DNA in it, because like so much of it takes place overseas. Like, it's not set in the US at all. The US is nearly like the bad guys, right? Which is kind of the cool thing about this trilogy as well. Like, the CIA, or at least elements within the CIA, are the enemy. But there's so much foreign language acting in this movie. Like, I don't know, it feels like it fits in with other foreign movies that I've watched, and I don't know, I actually really like it though. Like, I think it feels unique, and it makes it feel a bit new, I guess. I don't know.
No, it does, yeah. It makes it feel, it has that like globe-trotting appeal of a lot of those classics. And but it also does make it feel unlike anything we've had before. And to your point, like Marie, who's played by Franca Potente.
Yep.
She was in this movie called Run Lola Run, which was a very influential 90s foreign film. So they're clearly like riffing on that as well. Like, they know they've hired her for that reason. I think the influence is there on the nose, which make it stand out. Like, it's not like any of the other action movies sort of we had up until this point, which, I don't know, like, gives it a very unique identity, funnily enough.
I was surprised how many other actors are in this movie that, like, because I just remember Matt Damon, but like, there's Walton Goggins, Julia Stiles, like, there's Clive Owen. Like, there's people in this movie that you just like he's nearly not recognizable. I don't know. If I totally forgot Julia Stiles was in these movies.
She plays a pretty important part, right?
Yeah, she does.
Mr. Echo.
So does Walton Goggins. He plays a very important part.
He's pretty critical.
Yeah,
I was really bummed when they recast him for the second and third one. I was like, where'd he go?
It's so weird seeing him. I'm like, because
he looks the same age. His hairline is the same 20 years ago.
I think because he looks that way, I've been like, he must have been big in the 80s and he's just remained big forever. I'm like,
plastic surgery for the last 10 years.
Like, something. But then I guess, Justified comes quite a while after this. So like, it's so yeah. In my mind, he's always been there. I guess he had to start somewhere. I just didn't realize he started this. It's 20 years now, which is 22 years, which is insane. But
Yep.
yeah, it was very nice, very fun to see him.
Conan, do you think there was anything at all like with this trilogy and the Bourne one with the world of assassins? You know, they send out these messages on their computers, and all these assassins get the codes. Did this influence John Wick at all?
I mean, yes, like without a doubt.
Yeah.
John Wick is. Sorry, I've never once said John Wick is not derivative. John Wick is an intentional nod of the like.
No, I'm not saying
I
that.
don't think Luke was accusing you of anything.
No, I was just saying.
I feel attacked whenever anyone brings up John Wick.
I had this thought that it would have been like a cool Easter egg in one of the John Wicks that he ended up being the one that killed Jason Bourne. He took on the job and took out Jason Bourne. It was like, yeah, I did that.
And that's the next cinematic universe, right? John Wick 5, he kills an old. Yeah, that's the film.
Yeah.
No, like,
there is so many spies he could take out. That would be pretty awesome, actually.
It's a good game idea, just like God of War, but instead of killing other gods, it's just spies killing
James
other spies.
Bond, John Wick.
Yeah,
that's kick ass. Like, yeah, this I think it's worth saying. This movie is like a weird sort of unicorn in a way, right? Like, it had a bit of a troubled production. It had originally been like conceived and was meant to be made in the 80s. I think I read somewhere like Burt Reynolds was originally going to be cast in this. Like, it went through long gestation and, getting handed off and never getting developed. Comes in, problematic shoot with Doug Wyman. He has always had problems with like production companies. So issues here. It was originally going to be released, I think, in 2001, but managed to avoid the 9/11 of it all, which is good. But it comes out, they want to originally like kill Jason Bourne off in the end and sort of just... the whole thing was expected to be a dud. It was expected to just come and go, not be a big thing. But it goes on to really like shape so much of what we know of action DNA for the next 15 years. Like, Paul Greengrass does a lot of that, but I think all the things you said, like the interesting look at the spy world that wasn't as... because it feels different to the 90s stuff of like, the Sum of All Fears and I don't know, Patriot Games, all that kind of... who's like Tom Clancy
away
stuff.
from gadgets and stuff like that too.
Yes, yeah. This one's a lot more... it's really grounded, right? It's a lot of just like, how do I climb down the wall of this? How do I use a laser pointer? There's no there's no fancy tech.
Yep.
There's no... and like you said, Grant, there's no like patriotism. There's no sort of sense of like, we are the Americans fighting the evil foreigner.
Yep.
And like, it's got those foreign film sensibilities. It intentionally doesn't... like, it puts a romance front and center. It's just kind of shapes, I think, changes like what action looks like. And so yeah, things like John Wick, everything I think take from this movie, this the ubiquitousness and just how commonplace Matt Damon is in everyone's mind just sort of speaks volumes of how important it is.
Yep.
I gotta admit, I loved seeing, like, especially in the first one, just all the old computers in this room of like the CIA, and it's just this like what a LAN party would be.
I was gonna say this movie came out at a really interesting time because this movie has like the old massive CRT monitors in every scene, and they just like, I don't know, you can't avoid them. They take up so much room on a desk, and like all the phones are flip phones. But then the next movie, they're all LCD screens. Like, they're all so much smaller. Like, it's just a weird point in history, I feel like, where we had all this, we had mobile phones, we had the internet, but we were still using CRT screens.
I swear Clive Owen opens a flip phone at one point and looks at the buttons of the phone, like as if that's where he gets the messages, and then closes it because he's just like, I don't know how this thing works, but it's great. I love it.
But they give like such a cool tactile feel to spy stuff. Like, when there's get me a shot from that camera in the street, it's like we can't really make out what anything is. And it's like, it's so tense because like, are they going to be able to find who he is? He's like, oh, we might be able to tap into something. And it's like, I've got to download this. Give me 20 minutes. I don't know. Spy movies now, I feel like technology's killed the spy genre, right?
You can do it. They'll be like, he's live on TikTok. Look, here he is. His geolocation is here.
His live streams himself killing somebody. It's it's not very fun.
I also think flip phones are the superior movie phone. Like,
absolutely.
I don't know, if you want to hang up on someone harshly, like, you can do it. You can snap them in half when you need to. Like, there's lots of fun things you can do with a flip phone that just is totally lost in a smartphone. Like, if they're all running around with iPhones, I don't know, it all just feels awkward, right? Like, you can throw a flip phone across the room and then pick it up and make a phone call. It's fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. We've lost something there.
I want to see the spy movie where they're trying to slide to unlock, but there's too much blood on the screen. They just won't do it, and they're like, they got to stop and wipe it down, but it smears it worse, and it's like foiled again. That's an idea.
Yep.
Hey,
Copy patent pending.
The car chase in this movie, I forgot how friggin' good that was.
It's really good.
And that really is a centerpiece, and I guess to where we mentioned before, both inspired by like classic films. The whole Mini, very inspired by the Italian Job.
Yes. Yep.
But then goes on to be redone in, I think, Mission Impossible Fallout, where he's got Tom Cruise has the chase in another mini car. Or is it Fallout? Maybe it's Dead Reckoning. Whichever one he does that.
Dead Reckoning,
yeah. So it's like, I don't know, something about mini European cars in like the sort of the narrow European streets is just so good. And it's got that banger song, Ready, Steady, Go. It's just, so good, like perfect unison of like action being made out of need, and the tactileness of it all just really, really stands out.
I enjoy like the final showdown he has with Clive Owen too. Like it's almost anticlimactic. Like there's very little action, but just where he shoots him and then he pins him down and he's talking to him and he's like, "Do you get the headaches? Do you feel it too?" And it's just like, oh shit, like I don't know, something about that hit me. Like I just thought it was really well done.
Yeah,
I agree.
And I love the whole just outsmarting, like with the birds, and it just feels really cool of like these two people who are great at their jobs, just seeing who can one up the other, and then it's not like a big thing. He does just one up him because he's Jason Bourne. He's better.
Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne.
It's Jason Bourne, so he gets him. I really like that whole set as like the final showdown. It's really cool.
I think it makes it so different to what we get as well, because you're right. Like it's basically like watching a puzzle be solved, right? Because you see in the house, he's like, the guy mentions the dog, and he's like, "Does that happen? Does that happen often? Miss breakfast? No, never." So he's like, "Okay, get in the cellar." He finds a shotgun shell, so he knows there's a gun. It's like just watching this dude solve a puzzle in real time, and he's figuring out how to get out of this. And that's so interesting, and it's so different to what I guess action was before then, and will go on to be. Like, it is weird that the more I think about it, the more I think it's strange that this trilogy sort of morphs into a whole different beast, because everything in Ultimatum, well, that's not true. The train station thing is different. But yeah, most of the things that stand out in those movies are just the fights, are like really good hand-to-hand combat. Whereas in this, it's no fight at all. It's just problems. It's spy solving problems.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's so fascinating and really engaging.
Yeah. Yeah, I really feel for Maurice X. Like he just got the raw end of that deal so bad, I reckon. Like,
and he's such a nice dude too. He like lets them stay there and everything, and he's just like, "Oh, awesome! Someone killed my dog. Awesome! I'm gonna kill my family.
Blew up my tank full of fuel for a smoked screen.
Thanks, mate. Now we're gonna starve in winter."
You reckon you guys would do that for me? I turned up with someone was like, "Listen, I know you don't want me here, but I need to hide out with this very suspicious looking
I'm
person."
your ex in this hypothetical. Is that how this works?
Just a good friend. Just a good friend. Right. I rock up with a real junky looking girl. Or Matt Damon. All right, either or. And I'm like, just hide us out for a little while. Do you do it, or do you like, nah, I don't trust this?
Never again, dude.
I don't know if you guys would. Like, I love you, but I just don't know if we're that close.
Fool me once.
Last time you killed my dog, do that again. You didn't have this excuse. It's not going to happen again.
I had to explain why Clive Owen was dead on my property.
All right. Anything else to say about the Bourne identity? Move on. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this trilogy. The Bourne Supremacy came out in 2004. When Jason Bourne is framed for a CIA operation gone awry, he is forced to resume his former life as a trained assassin to survive.
I don't remember anything about this movie, and I watched it a week ago.
I enjoyed watching these movies. They blend together a lot. I guess the 2 and 3 is what that's the kind way to put it. I guess the lack of identity is the mean way. I guess.
Yeah.
They do. They really do blend. My main reference for telling two apart is Carl Urban. Carl Urban's a bad guy.
Friend of a friend, Carl Urban in it.
Yeah, friend of the friend.
Yeah, I say our soulmate.
Yeah,
Carl Urban. Yeah, he's important.
Friend of the podcast.
It's really there's that. Like, you're right, that is the standard. All I remember is like the bridge in India, which is obviously a big deal because Marie gets got. and it's got the use of a magazine in a fight, which is gangster. And that's about it. That's like that's honestly, I'm trying to think.
Toaster.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the toaster.
He goes and turns on the gas, and then he puts the magazine that he just fought with, I think, in the
It's
toaster.
the assassin from the first one that takes out the main boss in the first one when he goes to his house.
Oh yeah. Yes, you're right. Yeah. I don't know why. It's just
No, trust me. I'm like, this is like the one I find hardest to recall. This and this one I guess has Brian Cox.
well, the first one does as well. He's just not this. Like the first one has Chris Cooper as sort of the villain, and Brian Cox is like you're kind of not sure what he's doing. This one, Brian Cox is the villain, which
takes center stage.
Yeah, which is good. But like, I do like that. I guess where I think of like the whole Pamela Landy thing, where she's a strong woman and she's trying to get this, and she feels like a bad guy, but then she's actually on Bourne's side, and it's the whole sort of double blind of like, is Brian Cox bad or good, and then it turns out he's bad. That's all fine. I don't know. I think I like the political espionage of these movies. Like I like the kind of the drama going on in the control room. I find the Jason Bourne stuff in this movie really forgettable. Like I just truly don't remember what he's doing. He's trying to clear his name, I guess. And then Julia Stiles turns up again for some reason in this one.
Yeah, she does.
And that's it. That's the rest. The other parts that are interesting is Pamela Landy yelling at Brian Cox. I'm like, that's cool, I guess.
Yeah.
The shaky cam. Like, this is where the shaky cam really starts to kick off. Like, I feel like you could feel it from the opening scenes, even dialogue. Like, the camera has a bit of a sway to it. It's oppressive, nearly, how shaky this camera is at times.
So I wanted to ask, do you guys think? I have two questions. A, do you prefer the shaky cam version to Lyman's much more still camera? And B, do you find the shaky cam in general bad in this, or do you think it suits?
I remember not feeling like it was too bad in 2, and then it was 3 where I was really like, okay, this is like too much. But I don't remember hating shaky cam at the time. Like I feel like it's something where we look back on with today's perspective, I suppose, and the action in movies like John Wick, which is nearly the antithesis of shaky cam, right? Yeah.
Do many people do shaky cam now, Conan?
Well, no, I think that we have like as is all things, it's seasonal. You had a long stretch of that where all action was shaky cam. Like I guess I'm thinking of not Casino Royale, but like Quantum of Solace. The action is really shaky, and then I guess I'm coming up blank, but all the forgettable action movies, pretty much from 2004 till about, like you could say 10 years, till about 2014. Probably John Wick might be the answer. About 10 years where I feel like I can't think of any real action movies in that era that stand out as like, wow, these are I don't know, like, because I think that most of them were trying to copy it. And I guess the difference is, I was watching this behind the scenes thing, and you see the fights on Ultimatum Supremacy, like it's not shaky cam where it's lazy, because I think there are two different types. There's like the Taken 3 shaky cam, which is a joke at this point, where it's 15 takes of really badly shaking because it's trying to blur what's happening. It's trying to hide the cracks or like the mechanics.
Yeah.
But when you see them filming these movies, and like the cameraman is literally there as they're fighting, and he's just like moving back and forth. And so it is kinetic, but there's a clarity to it as well, because the camera is actually there filming it. It's not like, let's film 50 disjointed movements and blur it so we can't figure it out. It's like, I was surprised how clear it was, even though it is so friggin' shaky. You're right. Every conversation is like half the faces are covered by someone else's shoulder. That blurs to like a brief slash, and then it's like you're meant to feel like the stress and the panic. But I think Greengrass does it with an actual clarity that really works. It works with the idea of like, this is his sort of paranoia. And now that he knows who he is, but he's still being followed, Jason Bourne's mind is this frantic kind of constantly moving sort of, I don't know, ocean. And that's why every piece of action is crazy and kinetic as well.
But I feel like, thematically, if you were to do that, the first one is the one to do that and have it be all frantic and how it can sort of steady out as it goes.
But I think there's a tone in the first one of like that, of the sort of the cold uncertainty where like sort of the paranoia. The whole first movie feels kind of stilted and paranoid, like he's always being watched, he's always alone, and I think it does fit of like the character progression. In Identity, he's in amnesia and his mental health is still and isolating. Whereas once that gets solved in Supremacy and Ultimatum, it becomes a bit more kinetic because he knows who he is, but now he's just constantly paranoid. And I don't think that paranoia is in the first one quite as much. So I actually like the sort of the difference in identity in that sense. Keep using identity a lot. It's not intentional. It's not a pun I'm trying to make.
See, I actually didn't find it too jarring or anything like that. It was definitely noticeable after watching the first one again, where I was like, oh, this isn't present. And then watching the second and third one again, it's like, oh, there we go. There it is. And I feel like I do appreciate Identity more for it, maybe. I don't know. But I've watched WWE my whole life. And for a long, long time, I feel like if a film student could watch a WWE match from a couple of years ago, they've fixed it recently, and vomit, because it's like there are segments of matches where a person's hitting a clothesline and there was a person responsible, Kevin Dunn, who did WWE's production for the last 30 years, and you'd have maybe 20 or 30 camera cuts. Or if someone was smacking someone with a steel chair and they would go up and down, zoom in and out, all these things to try and make it and hide the cracks in the floors, like you said with Taken 3. To the point that it's disorientating. I'll show you some clips later. And it's like, what the hell? There is 50 camera cuts in this like 20 seconds of this one person hitting a punch or something. It's like ridiculous. He got fired recently, like let go recently with weird Vince allegations, and someone else has taken over. And holy crap, has it stepped up massively in production. But I think watching that for so long, it didn't seem like a big deal to me. I was like, oh, this is fine. This is just a little bit of shakiness. But yeah.
That's what I mean. I think, like, look, you think of all I'm just looking briefly at the standout action movies, and it's things that don't use shaky cam. It's things like Kill Bill, V for Vendetta, Iron Man, Spider-Man, like movies that don't use it. But I think it's all the B grade and C grade, like the generic action movies that, there's always 1,000 a year. They're the ones that all use shaky cam, and they're the ones that most people saw and everyone's seen a bit of. But they're forgettable because that always happens. They follow trends and they don't do it well. Is it
also cheaper to do it that way for them? Like, is it?
No idea. Like,
I mean, I guess it just lets you hide poor choreography, right? Like you can make your choreography feel more frenetic and kinetic. But
that's what I don't. Shaky cam is a dirty word, and I feel reluctant to say it shouldn't be, but it shouldn't be. Like, it can be done well, and I think in these it's done pretty well.
Yeah, they're definitely not like the worst examples. As you said, Taken 3, there's that Catwoman movie too is really, really bad. That's the one that gets memed about occasionally, where she's jumping over a fence with 16 cuts.
Yes,
But yeah, I don't know. There's other movies like the Raid Redemption movies. Yep. Like they're kind of shaky, but they have really cool action, and it's done really well. And even the first season of Daredevil. Which took a lot of inspiration from those movies, but kind of shaky cam, but done really well, and like not done to be unclear, right? Like just done to enhance the action, and I think it can work well in those situations.
That's exactly the difference. And like I haven't seen anything else by Paul Greengrass, but he does that really well. I think in his two Bournes.
Is that really all we've got to say about the Bourne Supremacy?
This movie's so forgettable.
It is. The thing, I mean, it has kind of that classic move at the end where he's on the phone to her. She like realizes he can see her, and he does that earlier as well, where he's looking down at her, and she's got Julia Stiles in the room with her, and she's like, "Oh, I'll have to go find her." And he's like, "Won't be too hard. She's right next to you."
Yeah,
and he walks away.
I love that, and like. I don't know, the zinger at the end of the movie and then the music kicks in. I was like, oh, that's kind of iconic. I love that. And then when it comes again with the third one, I was like, oh, that's cool. I really, really enjoy that. What were you going to say?
I was going to bring up Moby, the song at the end, Extreme Ways. Like, that's worth noting because that song will forever be associated with this movie, I think. And
100%.
Whenever I hear it come up, I'm just like, it's Bourne. It's the Bourne song. And
Jesus Christ, it's Jason Bourne.
exactly. And like Oh yeah, I know, it really works. Like I don't like Moby, but it's a really good song, and you know, just
I
like it's really good
Yeah,
right at the
it's
end of
cool.
the sting.
I like Carl Urban in this. He looks very young. Um,
Doesn't young.
Obviously, it's not like amazing acting or anything like that, but I think he's good as this antagonistic assassin. That he's good at his job as well.
Yeah, he's got a general like sort of air of sinisterness about him.
Mm.
Like yeah, he has a look. You just see him, and you're like, there, this guy's got an edge. This guy's probably killed some people. So he's a perfect sort of
met his match.
exactly. He's like kind of the perfect choice. Although I felt Clive Owen's absence. I'm like, even though Clive Owen doesn't really do much in the first except that one scene, I feel like Clive Owen is a much more interesting version of this villain where there's like, because I don't. Did you guys get that feeling like
Well,
like we
got
did?
more sophisticated in like a way. Like
Yeah, and like Carl Urban even kind of looks like him in this. He's just like a generic white guy with dark hair. I'm like, I think that would have been more compelling if he gets killed by this conflicted assassin rather than just this pure evil Russian.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't know. I think all these movies kind of like I don't know. Like the villains are kind of like I enjoy them because they're, they're the CIA agents and stuff, and it's not super clear what's going on. But I kind of wish there was an assassin against him to match up against, I guess, kind of, which we get in the first one, like to some degree, although he's not really given enough to do, I don't think.
No.
Carl Urban, I think they kind of try to do that again, but he doesn't do much. I can't even remember in the third one, but I'm sure there's another example.
It's a dude, but I don't know who it is. But
yeah,
Clive Owen stands out the most. Like I feel like he's the most memorable opposed assassin. So
yeah. It is an interesting choice to not have like it's not spy versus spy, it's spy versus agency.
Yeah.
And like all the villains are faceless assassins. Like there's Clive Owen, there's this then the guy in the third one is just their guy in Morocco.
Yeah, he's the guy in the train station doing the sniping, that guy.
Yes. Oh no, actually there's two. Yeah, you're right, there's him.
Yeah.
He's kind of the bad one, but then when they're in Morocco, there's the guy who blows up the car.
That's right. Yep.
But again, like they're both agents. They're kind of fake, and like they're intentionally void of personality. So I think it's telling that Clive Owen stands out because even with one scene, he has personality.
Yep.
And you're like, I think that is probably the one thing missing from these movies. You're right, is like a counterpoint to Bourne can be as conflicted, but maybe the other side, like an assassin who's not amnesic, and so and you kind of get that in the third one, I guess. No, do you? Am I confusing them?
He shows the most personality right at the end, where he's like, "Why did you not pull the trigger?" But that's and
I guess that's really the most we get from that.
And he doesn't shoot him. So
you're right. That's about it.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah, let's move on. Bourne Ultimatum. Jason Bourne dodges a ruthless CIA official and his agents from a new assassination program while searching for the origins of his life as a trained killer. Could have told me that was the plot of number 2. I like that this movie kicks off there's no time between 2 and 3, right? Like it kicks off at the end of 2, and then the end of 3 happens like halfway through this movie.
Yeah, the whole
mind blown. It was very good, I thought.
It's so weird. So the first half is a flashback. Yeah. But not really. It's bizarre. That really confused me. But it was
because it kicks off and he's just escaped the tunnel. Like they're still after him from the tunnel.
Yeah,
where he left Carl Urban, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess it's going. And then I forget about that until then it comes up and it's like, oh, this is the scene. This is the conversation. I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Which I do like that
because I think at the end of 2, it felt like now it's Jason Bourne on American soil, right? Like he's home and now he's gonna fuck shit up in America, but he doesn't even till the 3rd act anyway.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, it is a cool choice. And I guess this way we get probably the standout scene in this, the great the train station chase. Like I don't know, I'd forgotten about that scene, but rewatching it, I thought it was a really cool addition to the sort of the oeuvre set, the action set piece. Of it's not gunfight, it's not close combat. It's really tense, and you're always on the look because you're constantly watching to see who's going where, and you've always got that point of view of Bourne of he sees people, he's like, those guys are coming, those guys are there, and he's like, tie your shoe now, and he just ducks a sight light. It's really tense. That's really, really cool.
that whole section is what I remember from this movie, like for years and years. Like if I think of Ultimatum, I thought of the train thing and the shuttering billboard with the sniper dude behind it, and the guy not listening to Jason Bourne when he really should just listen to Jason Bourne.
Yeah.
But yeah,
the Andes were on the case and they messed it up.
Pretty constant. Yeah, he's real good. Yeah, I guess there's the other standout moments is that, and then there's a whole rooftop sort of or apartment chase where again Morocco he's trying to find Julia Stiles. And there's that iconic scene where he jumps through the window and sort of flies through, dives, and then he gets to that big shaky cam fight. And that scene's really good. Like that whole scene is again very tense. Like having the cross cut, Paul Greengrass was cross cutting before Christopher Nolan ever was. So eat your heart out, Nolan. Where you're following Stiles and you're like, oh crap, when's she going to get caught? And then it keeps going to Jason just running. And there's really good. That's really good.
It was really tense. Like every door she tried, I'm like, oh man, why can't she get in there? I want her to be safe. But anyway, it all works out in the end, I guess. For some reason, I thought he was going to have a bit of a love story with Julia Stiles. She did the dyed hair thing, and which was the moment in the first one where they did the deed.
I feel like that must have been in the idea, right? Like
surely.
She's the weirdest character in these because she's in all three. She keeps bringing brought back as if to be like, holy crap, Julia Stiles. Like she comes like almost like as a cameo appearance, like as a Marvel thing. Like, wow, it's her again. It's Nikki.
Oh my god, it's her.
But there's never anything from her or for her. And I like Julia Stiles. I don't think she had a very big career after this, but she was a big thing when the first one came out. But it definitely feels like this was a story version, or this was like this was a potential that they could have used, and I guess they just never did. For either they never needed to, or she got lost in the cutting floor. I don't know, but it's a part that really stands out because she's in a lot of this movie. And you're right, that haircut dyeing scene is clearly meant to be like,
it just shows that he learned his lesson.
Or is it?
He doesn't want to get another person killed, so he's like, nah, I'm not going to do the deed. I'm just going to put you on the train, say goodbye.
But then, I mean, we even get the scene at the end where she's smiling because she hears about him on the radio or whatever. Like, he doesn't even show up there. Like, that's the other thing they could do. Have him
Maybe she shows up as a cameo in Jason Bourne.
Does she? Does anybody know? Has anybody seen that movie?
She is in Jason Bourne. I don't remember doing what. She probably has a love child.
She might be in Bourne Legacy too. She's just in all of them. She's the constant throughout the whole.
Series. She's the Iron Man of this whole franchise.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
but her arc is essential in this as well because Bourne needs kind of that anchoring figure, and I guess that's what's missing in Supremacy is the human relationship because again in the first one the whole story is centered around him and Marie kind of falling in love, and they're both just out of time and lost to the world as they find each other, and that's really sweet. And then in this one, even though there's no romance, there is clearly I think it's because we've got that scene where she could say the code word. It's like, if you're under duress, say this.
Yeah.
But she doesn't, so it's like, oh, okay, so she's on his side. And so you've got a reason to sort of root for Bourne now, besides just taking down the establishment. It's like, oh yeah, there's some sort of connection here.
But boy, does she sound like she's under duress. Which is like, Jason Bourne? I thought he was long gone. it's like, wait a minute, what are you doing? Are you sending good messages or not?
You're right, for a CIA agency, they're not very good at listening to the body language, the voice language in the body.
Yeah, I would have been like, shit, let's go there. He's there right now.
Such a long pause as well. Just 10 minutes later, she's like, this one. Anyway.
There's also that weird scene where she's like, you don't remember anything about us from before or whatever. Almost implying that they had a relationship previously to some degree.
Yeah, that would have been
anyway.
A twist.
Would have been. Could have been.
That's his wife.
You have a son, Jason.
I'm telling you, in Jason Bourne, she comes in and she's got two kids. It's like, these are both yours somehow.
And Jeremy Renner is the eldest son. And that's why it's the Bourne legacy. Legacy.
Wow,
damn.
I should have watched that. I should have watched that movie. Yeah. We haven't mentioned yet, actually, Tony Gilroy. His name has not been brought up at all in this conversation. And it probably should, because he is probably the one most important, to thank for these movies, or to blame, depending on your point of view. Like he obviously, because he wrote all three of these, so
Yep.
and he would go on to write and direct Legacy, which is interesting. Yes?
I feel like all the production names in this are people I should know, but probably like I don't. I couldn't tell you anything Tony Gilroy has done without looking.
You've seen Andor, haven't you?
No, I started it and didn't really enjoy it. But that's a story for another time. I've seen Michael Clayton. I've seen Rogue One, a Star Wars story, but I didn't know he wrote those until I looked them up on IMDb. Same with Paul Greengrass. Same with Doug Liman. Like they're all names I recognize. I have no idea what they've done unless I look them up.
Yeah, they're kind of that mid realm of like, they're not Christopher Nolan's or Denis Villeneuve's, where it's like everyone sort of knows their name.
Yeah.
But they're not just directors for hire. Like they're definitely or writers for hire. They've definitely got like in the industry or sort of in the realm of film, they're definitely important. And like that's the Tony and Dan, two brothers. Like they're very. I think Tony Gilroy's got a long history of like rewriting stuff, and he's very very respected as a screen editor as well. All of that is to say, like I think what works about these movies, the politics and the intrigue, and like the step-by-step nature of it all. Like there's no in all of them, there's not too much of a sense of Bourne just getting out of situations conveniently. There's no plot armor. There's no like, there's a convenient thing here to do it. He sort of, everything that happens, he earns. It's like, I bring out the first one, he climbs down the wall. It's not just like there's no ladder he can slide down or like dumpster to jump in. He actually has to scale down the wall. And, he has to talk to the girl and give her $10,000. Like Tony Gilroy is obsessed with like how things actually occur, like the step-by-step action. And I think that's what works with these, where it's like, how does Jason Bourne do this stuff? And like he puts a magazine in a toaster, which sets a fire, which causes this issue. And
true.
Like, I think that's what works, is sort of seeing the minutia of a spy at play rather than just seeing these set pieces. Like, again, even like the long action set piece on the roofs, like we see him like sort of trying to track down where Julia Stiles is going, and he figures out, okay, if I go that way, I'll make it. So he jumps over that and goes down that laneway.
Now I need to wrap these things around my hands because I've got to jump over glass, and then I'm going to...
Yeah, like you see all those little steps that like build character and make the action a lot more compelling. So I think it's worth saying, Tony Gilroy's like does a good job with that. Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, thanks.
Did you guys like this movie? I feel like we're all very down.
I don't know. I don't remember. I just feel like I don't remember it very well. Like it just blends in with the Bourne supremacy so much, and I never felt like there's some great payoff at the end that explains everything, right? Like I know they kind of he kind of does have that moment in the training center, but it still doesn't feel like, oh, now I get it.
Punch.
It's like, no, he's just like a soldier that was programmed. Like we kind of knew that already.
Yeah, but it's Blackbriar. It's not just Treadstone anymore, man.
Oh, of course. Of course.
Like I'm sorry, but Blackbriar's a big payoff.
Yeah. I absolutely. That's the thing. Like, you watch this trilogy, and there wasn't a thing of it of like, oh man, that cool thing at the end that they reveal. It's very, very, I feel, underwhelming. I like how they get there. I love the twist of him being in the guy's office and like calling him on it, and then
that's the best thing. Where it's like, if you were, we'd be having this conversation. So
face to face. That's great. Yeah. And then him going to the place, and it's just then I just feel like it's just okay. Like we kind of knew that. We knew that.
Yeah. So. Like honestly, him finding out that Julia Stiles was his partner previously, and he has kids or something like that. Obviously, it would be super memorable. Would it be a bit cheesy and kind of lame?
Yeah,
probably.
I felt it was
like
lame,
it's probably a bit much, but I would remember it. Mm-hmm. Even a bad ending can be memorable. Whereas this, I feel like it's just okay. Like he has, yes, I agree. That moment in the office where he's calling him, great. I like anytime Jason Bourne does that, where he's like watching you while he talks to you, is cool. But him meeting, it's almost like that scene where Neo gets to the center of the Matrix or wherever the hell it is, and
100%,
talks to the conductor dude in the hallway.
Best scene.
Nah, waste of time. Don't need it.
Right, do you mean the architect or the train guy?
The architect.
Two different. No, the best scene.
They're the same scene.
No, but 100%. In my head, for some reason, that was the scene playing in my head when we were coming up to the end of the third one. I was like, "That's right. This is where Neo meets the architect." I don't know. I would have liked some reveal of like, this is who you were before, like this is your brother Ben Affleck or something like that. Like,
Yeah, something to link him.
Buddy screenwriter Ben Affleck is working on this movie, Good Will Hunting.
Yeah.
The other way it could have gone for me was like, this goes all the way to the top. The president's involved, right? Like, Obama picks up. Well, it probably wasn't Obama at the time. George Bush picks up the phone. Like, I don't know.
Oh god.
Give it some bigger ramification than it's Black
not
Briar
have it
now.
It was just something, and the government's going to take care of this little naughty boys now.
But maybe that's probably the point, right? Like this thing happens every day. The person involved, responsible, gets a slap on the wrist. They appear in front of a tribunal and they explain their way out of it, and it's just going to keep happening.
Yeah, there is something like you're right. It doesn't go. It's not too cynical because there is someone bad. Like speaking of Daredevil, Stick, whatever his name is.
Yes,
the old guy. Yeah, the higher up, because he's like meant to be not. I don't think he's the chief of the CIA, but like he's some higher up, and it's revealed that he is involved in this as well. So he knows that that Blackbriar is killing American citizens. So that's meant to be like a reveal of holy crap, the CIA is committing treason on a regular basis. But I think I don't know. I think it works that it's not a huge like payout. There's not a huge showdown with him, and he's like, I was the one killing Americans. Like it, and like the question from the very first moment is, who am I and what happened? And then the doctor's like, this is who you were. Like, isn't that more interesting than?
But he's a nobody, right?
Like, it lacks impact because it's like, okay, yeah, the CIA killing police kill Americans every day.
Well, it's a different time. 2007 is very different.
That's a very 2024 view, yeah.
Like what? The government are corrupt? What? Like,
and they're like, no, and
it should have been. They were raising these assassins from kids. They were taking them as kids.
Because we've seen that a lot, and B, that's a sci-fi thing. Like this movie is grounded. This movie is trying to be really grounded in like what would happen if. I mean, there are spies, but like, what would happen if this spy thing was real like this? And to have a big reveal like that of we are breeding an army of like orphans, that would really that would feel so.
We could have, but they could have made. I don't know. I didn't feel like his backstory. Like, okay, you can't do much more with the government perspective because it either becomes unrealistic or defies the point. Okay, make Jason Bourne a bit more interesting in his past life, right? Like he lost his wife and kid, and that's why he turned to this program, right, or something like that. I don't know. I just needed a bit more. I needed something to like be like, oh, that's why he is the way that he is.
Okay. I
feel like I need to watch Jason Bourne now to see if it actually...
No one needs to watch Jason Bourne. Stop.
I want to know the backstory. Who was he?
I want to know what Julia Stiles is doing in that movie.
I don't know what the backstory is. I think it worked because the point is meant to be. He's a nobody. He's not meant to be like the one best soldier. He's just a guy, and he was broken, and because it's meant to be a human story. Like you're probably right in that the execution could be a bit more memorable. And I guess part of it is like this movie is in a weird spot where if this movie was made today, this reveal of or sort of the whole conceit of the CIA killing its own people would be a lot more front and center, and the movie would be a lot more cynical. It'd be a lot more like, this is what the government does to us. We should be angry at it. This is still in a time of very post 9/11 where America is definitely starting to fracture, but there is still this sense of people trying to take comfort in what they know and trying to understand, who the enemy is. And it's pretty ballsy in 2007 to be like, the CIA is the enemy, but it doesn't go too far one way of being like America itself is evil, and it definitely doesn't go the other way of being like America is good.
They should.
Yeah,
but I think that's just a lens of looking at a different movie. Like, this is 15 years old now.
Yeah.
I think that's what you get now. I just think like
Metal Gear Solid 2 is 22 years old, and it tackled the hard questions.
Yeah, I can't argue with that, I guess.
I mean, it's not that different of a finale, but yeah. I don't know if a 5-minute info dump in the form of a codec would work at the end of this movie either. But anyway.
You don't want to fight the president with a katana on the top of
I want that in every movie, but I don't want an info dump in a codec at the end.
No. Fair enough. Yeah.
I think it works. I think it's satisfying.
I was a little unsatisfied, in my opinion. All right, are we going to rank these movies?
Yeah, that's what we do, isn't it? It's the whole reason we're here.
Yeah, I think it's 1-3-2 for me.
1-3-2.
I see. You guys both think that.
I think so. Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, I was expecting it not to go that way because I originally had always had it as 3-1-2. And on this rewatch, I think I'm the other way. I think I'm with you. I think 1 is actually the best, which I really didn't.
Neither did I. I didn't think that. I didn't think that coming in, but 100%. I was like, I really enjoyed Identity, and it's the one I feel like that has the most identity that I remember the most.
Yeah,
even though it was the furthest one I've watched.
And I think it stands out in terms of, I guess it's what you want. If you want an action movie, 1 is not the movie for you. But like as a standalone piece of, as a standalone movie and story, I think 1 is probably the most interesting.
Yep,
and I guess 2 and 3 suffer from the whole action thing, where action movies become outdated naturally.
Yeah, and I think we're looking at it from having been overrun with movies that this movie inspired, right? Like we've seen them over and over again since then. Whereas Bourne Identity is a little left of field from that.
Where spy movies are kind of they're not done as much. Like there is a strong history of spy movies, but they're fewer and further between than action movies. So especially on this, I was like, 1 really struck me as a nice sort of, it's like a change of pace that we don't really get espionage films as much or to the same caliber. So
Clive Owen.
What's happened to Clive Owen?
I don't know.
What's he doing these days?
Children of Men.
He is a Children of Men.
Yeah.
What a movie. Clive Owen he could have been Bond. And like, what's he doing now?
Doing miniseries.
Justice for Clive Owen.
I guess so. He was in Gemini Man. That's the problem.
He brought this on himself.
Oof.
Yeah, that's rough.
Oof. Yeah, look, not a lot, to be honest.
Yeah.
Going with old Clive. Bring back Clive Owen. All right.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us for the good, the bad, and the worst. That was the Bourne Trilogy. Next fortnight, we are doing The Quiet Place, where we're doing the prequel plus 1 and 2. Will there be a 3 that will screw over our trilogy later on? Maybe, but we'll review it on its own. That's okay. Yep. So join us next time for, what is it? The Quiet Place Day 1, Quiet Place, and The Quiet Place Part 2, I guess is what they're called.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, but you don't watch it in that order.
So how are we watching it?
Right.
What order are we watching it in?
You have to watch 1, 2 prequel.
Yeah, prequels are meant to be watched after the fact. That's what they are. That's their whole bit.
We might even get to see the prequel together. So you come with your homework done, watch 1 and 2 beforehand.
This is history in the making.
This is exciting. It's exciting.
Still haven't figured out how we could record together, but anyway.
We'll be able to talk about our cinema experiences together.
Don't tell the people how the sausage is made. Just know
that
our sausages will be made.
There's a high chance that we will be the only 3 people in the cinema watching this film.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I'm kidding.
All right, this podcast is also brought to you by The God Grotesque and The Taste of Iron, books by Conan Clark.
Yes,
excellent books. Check them out on Amazon. I really should have the copies here in front of me so I can hold them up. I'm very slack about that.
They're on my reading desk. That's why they're not here, because I've been reading them late at night.
Yeah, everyone believes that.
Yes, I read.
All right, thanks for joining us. Leave us a rating on iTunes or Spotify. Like us on Facebook, because we're all boomers and we have a page on there. And we'll catch you next time.
Peace.
Jesus Christ, it's Jason Bourne.